Well, I thank the member for Granville. I now call the member for Ballina.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to contribute on behalf of the Greens on the debate Electricity Infrastructure Investment Bill. And wow, it's not often that I feel this hopeful. I'm not going to suggest that it's a panacea. I'm not going to suggest that it's the answer to all our prayers, but it sure as heck is in the right direction. And you could have knocked me over with a feather to see last sitting the Minister for Agriculture, a member of the Nationals, standing up in this place and talking up the boom in jobs in renewables. Very exciting, Mr Speaker, because we have been making that case in the Greens, both federally and at a state level, for a couple of decades, and those in the opposition have made it federally for a long time and at state level. That isn't, I'm not going to dwell on negatives, but I think it's important to say that this is actually a significant milestone, and I don't really care how it happened. I'm so glad that it has happened. Because, Mr Speaker, one of the reasons I got into political life was because of climate change, where we're headed in terms of life for humans on this planet and, of course, all the diverse species. And we know that a warming planet is a human rights issue for future generations, if not now. And I've seen that, Mr Speaker, in the Pacific on a number of occasions, that it is real. If you talk to someone who is from Kiribati or Solomon Islands or Samoa, you will hear that they are planning how do they relocate their entire nations. Sea level rise is not an abstract concept. And increasingly in my electorate, Mr Speaker, we are seeing coastal erosion at levels that we've never seen before. And of course, we have all been talking about the extended droughts and extended bushfires, the catastrophic level of them. And it is late to the party, but it is very welcome at the party. Mr Speaker, we have seen 12 years of political inertia on the part of the Liberals and Nationals at federal level when it comes to both harnessing the renewables boom that started in earnest nearly 20 years ago in this country and that went overseas because of a failure in leadership. It's been a very long and dismal thing to observe. I remember well that we were leading the world in solar technologies 20 years ago, and then watched when I lived in Broken Hill, like it was a big deal. Our researchers were the best in the world. And then we watched as those researchers and those innovators went overseas to China and India to lead their renewables boom. So when I do hear the Minister talking about a renaissance in manufacturing, I do feel a very strong sense of the fertility of all those intervening years. And we do realise, Mr Speaker, that this is the tail leading the head, if you like, in that the states are having to go it alone. And that's very disappointing. But I do think if you see National Party members standing up in this place and seeing that there are lots and lots of jobs in renewables and believing that economic case finally, I think the Liberals have been there for a while, then it just tells us that this has a real chance. Mr Speaker, sadly we do see this battle of ideology still playing out and in the federal sphere, and some in Labor are still doubling down on coal and gas. It's very hard to understand. I was horrified to read in the Sydney Morning Herald recently that Labor former Shadow Minister Joel Fitzgibbon is still talking about jobs and loss of jobs, and in the same breath that everyone's finally talking about the jobs in renewables. But, you know, what to do. But, Mr Speaker, don't take my word for it. Not only has my party made this case over a very long time, but my community has been leading the way. Mr Speaker, Nova Energy, community-owned energy provider in my electorate, their Haystack Solar Garden, their provision, of course, to retail, homes and businesses, their shared community battery and Byron Bay's microgrid pilot are world class. We've also got a Repower Byron Shire project, which is being led by community-owned renewable energy Mullumbimby and Nova Energy, and also Zero Emissions Byron Bay. And Mr Speaker, Zero Emissions Byron Bay has been working tirelessly for the last 15 years to keep this on the agenda, and they've done such a good job. Southern Cross University, their Clean Energy Accelerator is something that is quite extraordinary in the regions. And of course, thousands and thousands of residential members, residential homes, and those people have made the switch to solar a very long time ago. We are absolutely punching above our weight in terms of solar at the home and battery. Coolman Energy, last year I was very proud to announce $3.5 million for their Byron Bay solar farm project. Tesla put in, 4 years ago, put in one of the first electric vehicle charging stations at Macadamia Castle in the Ballina electorate. And just locally, Gus Moncrief is now pursuing a community-owned power generation in Ballina, as well as all of our solar providers. So a big shout out to them, because they have been leading the way whilst governments have been falling behind. And also the New South Wales Greens Climate Action Working Group, who just keep showing up in terms of policy and advocacy. So we're very glad that the government finally believes us, that there are lots of jobs to be had in renewables. Every major gas and oil company has already left the dock and transitioned to a renewables focus for their industries. And, you know, finally the penny has dropped. We have a plan to see a just transition for all mine workers in this country who currently work in the fossil fuel industry. I think it's worth repeating that, Mr. Speaker. We have a plan to see a just transition for those workers, and we've had that plan for a while. It is that simple. And whilst we lament that it is the states leading the way, as I say, we're very glad it's happening. We support the 3 types of energy infrastructure identified by the experts as the lowest cost replacement for the New South Wales electricity system. First, new transmission that supports the diversification of the grid to renewable-rich areas. Second, renewable generation providing very low marginal cost energy to the system. And third, long-duration storage like pumped hydro and firming like gas and batteries to provide dispatchable energy and other services to complement the intermittent nature of renewables. We know that the grid needs a massive, massive transformation, and I know that there is money that's already earmarked at the Commonwealth level for that huge upgrade. And this plan, if it all goes well, will assist that greatly. We commend the government for investing in the high upfront capital costs needed to set up a 21st century grid that will support our renewables boom. Belated, but supported. We welcome the renewable energy zones that will combine generation, transmission, storage and system strength services to ensure a secure, affordable and reliable energy system. We agree that those zones have the potential to deliver affordable energy and help replace the state's existing power stations as they retire. Talking about affordable energy, you know, for the last decade, that has been used as a way of signalling that we should not embrace renewables. So it is such a relief to see that we've got the opposite argument finally being taken. We're concerned, however, Mr. Speaker, that underpinning the roadmap is a $32 billion private sector investment. It's a lot of money. We know that the shift to 100% renewables is best achieved quickly and fairly by transitioning to 100% publicly owned energy. But I am aware, and I commend the Minister, that there are some amendments that the Greens will, my colleague, the member for Balmain, will make those amendments shortly, and that there has been some movement on that towards more government and public-owned assets. The Greens, as I say, are seeking those amendments to ensure where possible that renewable energy is publicly owned and that the materials required to build the infrastructure are manufactured locally. The expected 6,300 construction jobs and 2,800 ongoing jobs in 2030, mostly in regional New South Wales, is absolutely welcome. The reduction in carbon emissions in New South Wales by an estimated 90 million tonnes by 2030 is very, very welcome, as is the expectation that households over the next decade will save an average of around $130 a year. Mr. Speaker, may I seek a short extension?
The question is an extension of time. The question is the extension of time be granted. All those in favour? Against? The ayes have it. An extension of time has been granted.
Thank you very much. I don't think I'll need the whole time. We welcome the fact that the government is recognising the urgency to shift with this electricity bill. The Greens will be working proactively to improve it. As I say, one of the things we want to see is local procurement and to deliver a fair return for First Nations people for all projects built on their land. And in my electorate, the Arakwal-Bumbalin people are native title holders, and this is the sort of conversation that we want to see with any project in that area and across the state. The Greens will be seeking to ensure that this bill provides a just transition fund for coal power generated workers and communities, and that it includes supporting local manufacturing and local jobs. We also want to see an ability to make payments out of the Electricity Infrastructure Fund to assist in the delivery of green hydrogen firming projects. We want to allow for contributions to be directed to the Electricity Infrastructure Fund and to recover a proportion of any super profits made by a distribution network service provider. That's very important because that's about owning the infrastructure and that's about seeing the returns come back into the community. We believe that targeted early investment in green hydrogen is critical to rebuilding our local manufacturing base. We need to ensure that the investment that flows with the renewable energy boom will not only deliver green power, it will also deliver local jobs, and that means inserting strong local procurement provisions in the bill. Economic empowerment for traditional owners and First Nations communities is a key priority for the Greens in negotiating the amendments to this bill, and we look forward to a cooperative response from the government. Mr Speaker, in closing, I congratulate the Minister for this bold, very bold initiative, and it's belated. It's a renaissance that was well overdue, but we are so welcome that it is here and that the case is now on the table for jobs, for the jobs boom in renewables, and that we can actually slow our emissions down and do what we need to do as leaders in the world and embrace the full benefits for communities and for communities across the globe with this investment. We commend the bill.
Well, I thank the member for Ballina. I now call the member for Macquarie.